Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and this is Brooklyn Savvy.
Hi, I'm Tony Williams, and welcome to Brooklyn Savvy. We are delighted to have Dr. Steve Perry. He's an author, an educator, founder of Capital Preparatory Schools, as our guest on Brooklyn Savvy. And we're also joined by a regular Brooklyn Savvy panelista, Phyllis White-Thorne. Thank you so much, Phyllis, for joining. So, Dr. Steve, I am so intrigued by the work you do. Talk to us about the charter school that you have formed in Harlem with P. Diddy.
So first of all, thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be on Brooklyn Savvy. So there are a couple schools that we've started. The first school we started is in Hartford, Connecticut. It's a magnet school. And then we started, that was a 6 to 12. And then we started an elementary school. Then we came down to Bridgeport, Connecticut. We started another 6 to 12. Then we started an elementary school. Then we started a school in Harlem. Then we started one in the Bronx as well. Mm-hmm. Our schools are founded by us for us, with the expectation that what we will do is we will help our children become the people who they deserve to be by providing them access to a quality education and faculty and staff that look like them, that are from the same communities they are, as well as those allies who are not from our community, who may not look like them, but who bleed the same blood that they bleed.
Now, my question is, now you mentioned something about people that look like them, and then you talked about allies. Talk to us about white people teaching Black children. What is your view on that?
So the data is pretty clear that when African-American children learn with African-American and teachers, they tend to do significantly better. The data is really clear on that. Mm-hmm. On the same token, when you put Black kids in front of great teachers, regardless of their color, they'll perform. The challenge that we've often been faced with is that it is too often the case that many people from outside our community do not have the same level of affection for our children. I'll be even more specific. Affection. I'll be even more specific. Though Black children make up but 18% of all kindergartners in America, they make up 49% of all the children who are suspended out of school as kindergartners. Mm-hmm. The majority of teachers in the United States of America are white. The majority of them are women. The people who are most likely to suspend, expel, and discipline our children are people from outside the community. They've criminalized behaviors that otherwise would be seen as just being mischievous. Mm-hmm. There is such a thing as implicit bias. There is such a thing as racism, and it makes its way all the way down to our little ones. But let me also make a different point. There's also classism. And that classism, interestingly enough, can find itself among Black and Latin teachers as well. People look at our children as those kids. Even if they came from the same community, they may have seen themselves as pulling themselves up out of bootstraps and seeing the people who are still behind as those people. And so if it were just white people who were doing this, then we would just say, don't put your kids in front of white teachers. But that's not in fact the case. There are white teachers who I rock with, who I would hire faster than you could say Jackie Robinson. But the data is clear. The data is clear that traditionally African-American children work better in settings where they're learning from African-American and Latin teachers.
So what might that be? Because teachers may not be prepared, they're not taught. Does that have something to do with the way we prepare our teachers to go into the school system, to do their job, to the way we train them?
I think it's some of that. Mm-hmm. I think it's some of that, but I don't want to overstate that. Right. I think it's really just garden variety growing up white in America. How many times have we seen a Black child, Black boy in particular, like let's just name it. How many times have we seen a Black boy put out of class for something that a white kid is not being even dressed for?
Absolutely, yeah.
Black boys are the most disciplined, suspended, and expelled children, full stop, followed by Latino boys and then Black girls. Mm. You got to go all the way down to the bottom to get to white girls who are at the bottom in terms of disciplined, suspended, and expelled. It does not follow, it follows reason that the people who are most likely in front of them are white women. So white women tend to understand what white girls are doing in a way that they don't seem to understand what black boys are doing. They don't seem to see the same behaviors in the same way. Mm-hmm. So you can easily see, and again, generally speaking, because I'm not going to paint the world with broad brushes, there are people of all colors and cultures who are about that life, who are deeply committed to our community, who I would go to war with and have gone to war. But I'm not going to sit here and let anybody believe that I think it's fair. The system is designed in New York in particular. There's a great book called The Strike That Changed New York. And The Strike That Changed New York, what you see is how New York's public schools were set up. In 1968, in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, there was a movement called community schools where Black parents and Black educators wanted to be able to hire their own teachers and own principals to teach their own curriculum. And the United Federation of Teachers, which is a largely white organization, a teachers union, had 3 strikes in 1 year to stop Black and Latin parents, but most specifically Black parents, from running their own schools. That has not changed. Mm-hmm. That same group is central to limiting access to things like school choice, charter schools, magnet schools, because for them, they want to be the 4th branch of government to make sure that they can keep our people where they think our people need to be, which is in the ghetto. So we can't overlook the very real, not just history, but present of an existing group. Yeah. And they can hire a Black person that didn't be the president, but it's not going to change the racism of that organization that wants to keep people of color in communities that were created, ghettos that were created to keep Black people in small communities where they were under-resourced.
And that raises a lot of questions, a lot of issues. I'm going to kind of go back to the Black boy thing, because I raised my son in public school, then I moved him to parochial school, then to private school, and everything you're saying is true. I found that there was so little tolerance for the energy of young Black boys. None. I remember going to Philadelphia on a field trip, and there was this young boy who was raising his hand. He wanted the teacher to acknowledge him. She wouldn't look at him. And then somehow or another, she ended up yelling at him. I went over to her. It wasn't my son, but I said, you know something? This is what we have to do. I said, why is it that you're not paying? Why are you disciplining him? He's raising his hand. He's trying to participate. She backed up. I have to tell you, as far as I'm concerned, public school was challenging for African-American boys. I didn't find it a safe place. I didn't.
It's not challenging. It's not just challenging. Let's call it what it is. Mm-hmm. I'll repeat that statistic that I just said. So I said 18%, 49%. What you know is that when children are suspended or expelled early in life, they tend to have less access to instruction, meaning that while I'm home, y'all ain't teaching me. So 75% of the children who do not learn to read on grade level by the time they are in the 3rd grade will never learn to read on grade level. Let's go all the way forward. Though African Americans make up less than 20% of the of the general population, in some states we make up as much as 49%. You ever heard that number before?
Absolutely.
49% that was expelled and suspended as children. When we talk about a school to prison pipeline, that is the traditional neighborhood public school system. And people could say, well, I went to public school and it worked out well for me. Whatever, man. You can say what you want to say, but the data does not support the truth. The truth is, the absolute truth is that African-American boys, when put in traditional settings, are suspended, expelled, and disciplined at a rate that is so inconsistent with their participation in the school that it should be criminal. It should be seen as a hate crime. It should be seen as a hate crime. Because you talk to many Black mothers who've had sons, and they got horror stories after horror story. And
it doesn't matter your socioeconomic background. All they're seeing is a Black kid. That's all they're seeing is a Black boy. It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter. No, it doesn't. You're right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. And there are so many middle-class Black people, mothers in particular who talk about how they had to go down to that school, right? We all had to go down to that school, right? Right? Isn't that what we say? I had to go down to that school, right? Right? I had to go down to that school. And you see some ticky-tack stuff. You're like, so hold on a second, Miss whatever. You're calling me to tell me that my son did what? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is why we're here? So y'all couldn't take care of that in the building. Like that wasn't something that you feel like you're degreed and certified to take care of. There is inherent and explicit racism in public education.
Absolutely.
And anyone who says anything different is lying. And so when you hear these people, like think about this. 75% of private schools were open during COVID. Open during COVID. The majority of the people in those schools are white people, upper middle class. 91% of the teachers in the teachers union in Los Angeles voted to not go back to class. 91%. 91%.
That's all of them. Essentially.
90%. And then and they said until their demands are met, they've moved the line so far out that there's no way the demands can be met. One of their demands is to defund the police. How about this? If y'all stop doing our kids so dirty, kicking them out of school from the time that they're 4 and 5 years old, we wouldn't need the police. We wouldn't need as many cops. We wouldn't engage with as many cops. Look and see how many cops are in the school because y'all can't get a 5-year-old. You just saw a little girl in Rochester, pepper sprayed by cops. She was like 9. I challenge you to find a single image of a white child in the United States of America who's 9 years old, handcuffed and pepper sprayed. Take all the time you need.
I wonder, so what does that do to the psyche of our children?
That's horrible.
This kind of horror, in a sense. You know, school is supposed to be a safe place where you go to learn, to feel good. What does this do?
So you know what's interesting about that? If you go to most any pre-K or kindergarten of any color child, and those of you who've had children, you understand, right? When your son or daughter or sons and daughters were 4 and 5 years old, they couldn't wait to go to school. You couldn't tell them nothing. They had their pens, their pencil, their little trapper keeper, their little folders. They had all. They had their school shoes. They had the uniform. They were ready to go, right? You couldn't tell them nothing. They were ready to go to school. They could not be more excited to go to school. And if you go into those early grades and really early grades and you ask children, who wants to go to college? All the little cherub hands will go right up in the air. They can't. Ask that same group of kids, Black and Latin kids, ask the same group who go to the same schools in 2 years, how many of them want to go to college, and watch how many hands start to come down. Keep going all the way through the 6th grade. Keep going all the way through the 9th grade and watch how almost none of those hands go down. And then watch how the only hands that go up are the boys who think they're going to play college basketball or girls who are going to be an actor, actress. Or they stop losing the love for education because education stopped loving them from the time they got there. We beat the mess out of kids in school. We really do. And it's disgusting because people are getting away with it in plain sight. How many of y'all are grandparents and you see these children and they take out an iPhone and they can do all kinds of things to it. They take out a computer, they can do all kinds of things, but can't get anything higher than a C in school.